not subscribed to our channel, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button as shown above. Hello friends, welcome to Kamath Astrology. In today's video, we are going to talk about Mars going retrograde from 30th October 2022 till 13 January 2023. So in this video, let us understand the impact of retrograde Mars on the world in general. Now this is a very unique transit because Mars is going to stay in the sign of Taurus for a very long time, and during that time he is also going to retrograde between Gemini and Taurus. So Mars entered the sign of Taurus on 10th August 2022. He continues his direct motion and enters the sign of Gemini on 16th October 2022. And then he goes retrograde at 1 degrees in Gemini on 30th October 2022. That is, the apparent backward movement of Mars starts. And finally, Mars moves into the sign of Taurus on 13th November 2022. And he continues his retrograde motion till 13 January 2023 in the sign of Taurus, and then he becomes direct from 13 January 2023 and finally exits the sign of Taurus on 13th March 2023. So Mars is spending a very long time in the sign of Taurus. What exactly is meant by a retrograde planet? Now imagine you are sitting in a fast train, and on the opposite track you have a slow train. So what happens is your fast train eventually overcomes the slow train, but when you are looking at the slow train, as the fast train is passing by the slow train appears to move backwards. Same thing happens with the case of planets. When the Earth is moving faster than some other planet in its own orbit, when you look at that planet from the Earth, it appears to be moving backwards, and that is known as the retrograde motion of planets. So in this case, Mars is appearing to move backwards. A retrograde planet is very close to the Earth, and therefore its effect is maximum, or the planet is considered powerful when it is retrograde. Now, what is the other meaning of a retrograde planet? Whenever a planet is retrograde in your birth chart, natal chart, or even in transit, it shows some pending karma. It shows something is left incomplete, and therefore that planet is retrograde in your chart. So the reason why the planet goes retrograde or appears to be retrograde is to fulfill that pending karma. And therefore the planet is extremely powerful because it has to complete that karma. Now let us understand what is Mars. Mars is nothing but the action we take. Mars is the aggression. Mars represents the commander of armed forces. Mars represents the military. Mars represents the blood flowing through our body. Mars represents domination. Mars is our ability to take instant action. So in short, Mars is a major trigger for our karma. Mars propels us to take action. Now Mars first begins its retrograde motion when it is in the sign of Gemini at 1 degrees on 30th October 2022. This means Mars is in the Mrigashira Nakshatra inside the sign of Gemini when it is going retrograde. And what is the sign of Gemini all about? The sign of Gemini is about communication. It is about short distance travels. So when an aggressive planet like Mars becomes retrograde in Gemini, the first thing that is going to happen is it is going to make us very aggressive in our communication, and this is a period when we should be consciously careful about the way we speak to others. So if Gemini is the 7th house in your horoscope, you have to be careful in the way you speak to your wife or your business partner. If it is your fourth house, you have to be careful in the way you speak to your mother as well as to the people in your home. If it is your third house, you have to be careful with the way you speak to your siblings and so on. Now, what else happens when Mars goes retrograde? See, a retrograde planet is going to bring out issues from your past life because it represents certain pending past karma. So, you will come face to face with certain actions which you have performed in the past. And therefore, what is Mars now? Mars is nothing but anger. Mars is nothing but aggression. Mars is domination. And the negative quality of Mars is it also represents irritation and resentment. So when Mars goes retrograde, it is going to bring out certain issues from the past which will make you feel frustrated, which will make you feel irritated, or which may cause certain anger issues and resentment within you. So when Mars is retrograde, the first thing you need to understand is you have to control your anger. That is the most important thing. Second thing is this retrograde motion can cause resentment towards a person or towards a situation, and it can build up certain amount of frustration within you. Mars acts like a trigger, and therefore it is likely that this frustration will explode. So you need to consciously control your anger and bitter feelings towards anyone. You need to develop good thoughts towards others. So resentment, bitter feelings are something which you should try to avoid more by meditating, by increasing your awareness and focusing more on the Jupiterian qualities. So this is true as Mars retrogrades in the sign of Gemini from 30th October 2022. Now in the retrograde motion, Mars enters the sign of Taurus on 13th November 2022. Now what is Taurus actually? Taurus is a fixed sign, and therefore Taurus represents stubbornness. The symbol of Taurus is a bull. Now in the sign of Taurus, instead of being aggressive, Mars becomes stubborn. That is, once he decides to do something, he sticks to that idea. He refuses to change. So that is what is going to happen with all of us. Once Mars retrogrades into Taurus, most of us will become stubborn and we will try to stick by what we have decided. Now Taurus is also the sign which represents finances, which represents fixed assets, which represents family. So here Mars is more concerned with financial security. Mars becomes more introspective here with respect to financial decisions that we make. So retrograde Mars in Taurus is going to make you relook at your financial aspects. You may relook at certain decisions which you took in the past regarding your finances, regarding your family. Now whenever Mars retrogrades in Taurus, generally the stock market experiences a downward trend. There is lot of fluctuation in the stock market. So this is the time when you need to be very careful while investing in the market, especially after 13 November 2022, when Mars goes retrograde within Taurus. Now in many countries across the world, a retrograde Mars can bring about a major recession. Now Taurus is also India's ascendant, and Mars is going to retrograde in the sign of Taurus, which means the Indian stock market is also going to fluctuate in a big way between 13 November 2022 and 13 January 2023. That is the time period when Mars is going to be retrograde within the sign of Taurus. So in short, retrograde Mars within Taurus shows fluctuation in finances, shows fluctuations in the stock market, and you need to be cautious when you are making financial investments in this time, especially in the stock market. Now, it is also important to look at the position of Venus when Mars turns retrograde, and at that time you can see Venus is placed in the own sign of Libra with Ketu, Mercury, and Sun. So, in a way, Venus, thou in his own sign, is afflicted by Ketu and Sun. And since Venus rules India's ascendant and Libra is the sixth house for India's ascendant, it shows that some kind of disease may crop up in this time which can affect the Indian population. So, this is a time when we need to take extreme precautions with respect to diseases also. Don't think that corona has just disappeared because there are lighter variants going on right now. It may suddenly show its darker side when Mars goes retrograde. So the possibility of newer variants of the virus or some new virus coming in this time is seen, though I cannot say that this will certainly happen, but there is a probability of this happening because Venus is with Ketu as well as with the Sun, and Sun is also the natural karaka for health, for immunity. Now what else? Mars also represents the armed forces. He represents the commander-in-chief of armed forces. He represents a warrior. So when Mars is transiting through the sign of Taurus in a retrograde motion, it means military activities of armed forces will increase in this time period. Terrorist activities could also increase in this time period because that represents the negative side of Mars. So the Martian energy has to be directed properly, controlled properly, and that can be done only if we develop Jupiterian qualities within us. We meditate more, we introspect more. Now in Taurus, Mars becomes stubborn. In Aries, Mars is in a fiery sign, but in Taurus, Mars is in an earth sign. And Mars sticks to the decision he has taken in Taurus. Mars prefers to remain grounded, to be down to the earth in an earth sign of Taurus. Mars also represents electricity, Mars represents coal, Mars represents power supply. And when Mars is retrograding through Taurus, many countries are going to experience disruptions in power supply, disruptions in electricity. Taurus is also the natural second house in the zodiac belt, and therefore it also represents the food we consume. Now when Mars retrogrades in Taurus, many countries across the world will experience a food crisis. So these are some of the negative effects of a Mars going retrograde within the sign of Taurus. But overall, Mars retrograding in Taurus is good. It makes you relook at your financial decisions, your family aspects, and that is the good side. So friends, if you like this video, please mark it as liked on YouTube. If you have not subscribed to our channel, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. To know more about us, visit our website astroseva.tripod.com. For any consultations, email us at astrosevaworld@yahoo.com. So friends, thanks a lot. Bye. Take care and stay safe.